Hi everyone and welcome to Theme Park Worldwide. As we reach the end of 2024, I just wanted to film a bit of a year in review video and talk about lots of the highlights but also some negatives from the 2024 season. It's really been a weird, strange, peculiar year in the theme park industry because there's been some absolutely amazing things that have happened this year and some real good highlights, but then there's also been some downsides to the year as well. Quite a lot of ride closures and some poor availability at some parks. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of film a bit of a summary as we approach the end of 2024. As we always though do at this time of year, I just want to say how thankful I am for each and every one of you that watches the channel and supported us on this adventure over the years. Of course, Theme Park Worldwide has been running since 2012 now, since I first set up the channel, and we've done so much over the years. We've visited so many places, and when it gets to Christmas and New Year, I always like to kind of reflect on that and just once again say thank you so much for all of your kind words and support. We really are lucky that we get to go and experience all these different parks and attractions and bring them to you here on YouTube with our various different travels and adventures, and that's set to continue in 2025 with what's going to be a very exciting year. Let's start off then here in the UK. It's our home country. The parks here have really got me into theme parks and travelling all around the world, especially Alton Towers, my local park. It's only 10 minutes away from us here at the World of Theme Parks, and you know what? Alton Towers will always be that special park for me, and we've had some real highlights in the UK industry this year, things right on our doorstep that have been fantastic. One of the biggest things of the year has been the opening of Hyperia, the UK's tallest and fastest roller coaster. This time last year we were regularly going down there to Thorpe Park following the construction of Hyperia, and it really was an amazing time. Everyone was down there watching the build, and we captured that live footage of the first test, which was amazing, earlier in the year. And then of course we had like the press launch, the opening for it, and so many rides on Hyperia throughout the year. It really was an amazing opening. Of course, Hyperia had its downside. It did have some issues and some downtime, but you know what? The ride reopened and everybody was down there enjoying it and loving it. And you know what? I think everyone's really enjoyed Hyperia. Some people love it a lot more than others. For me, it's definitely my favourite coaster in the UK, no doubt about it. But I know for a lot of people, some people maybe thought it was too short or was a little bit disappointed. I think for me, you know, it's a brilliant ride. Like the elements on there really do pack a punch, and I think it's definitely the best we've got in the UK. But on a European scale or a worldwide scale, nowhere near. Like I wouldn't even put it in like a top kind of 30, 40 worldwide, in my opinion. But obviously I've been lucky enough to visit a lot of theme parks and attractions and done a lot of coasters around the world. I think with that, it all depends on what you have done. But for us here in the UK, I think it's a brilliant ride. I absolutely love it. Of course, you know, it could have been even better if it was longer. I think that's the thing for me. All the elements they've got are amazing, but it's like the first half of a coaster, isn't it? If we'd have had the other half with all the little twists and turns, and a bit like Icon's second section at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, it would have had something like that. You know, after all them big stellar elements, we would have been looking at maybe a top 10 worldwide coaster. And I know it is for some people, but still, you know, an absolutely brilliant ride. Yes, it had its issues and downtime and things throughout the year, but yeah, I've really enjoyed Hyperia. Nemesis Reborn was a big highlight of 2024. The fact that Alton Towers and Merlin made the decision to spend millions and millions of pounds on the transformation and rebuild of Nemesis. Still to this day, a lot of the general public think, oh, you know, nothing's changed, it's just been repainted. We all know it was so much more than that, and if you followed it here on Theme Park Worldwide from the start, you'll know that all the track and supports were removed other than the station, part of the brake run and the lift hill. Everything else was replaced. A new support was added as well in a different location. But all that track's brand new, all the supports are brand new from the top of the lift all the way to the start of the brake run, and they spent millions of pounds on that. Not only did they do that, they replaced the trains, they also added all the new theming around and created even more of a backstory. There was always quite a backstory for Nemesis, but Alton Towers had never really celebrated it massively until this marketing campaign for Nemesis Reborn, and I guess we kind of saw a bit more of that when Nemesis Subterra opened in 2012 and with the Phalanx and that backstory, but they really went into it with Nemesis's closing a couple of years ago and everything that we had all throughout the rebuild. And again, you know, all throughout the year, we've had hundreds of rides on Nemesis. I've not counted exactly, but I know I've definitely been on it a couple of hundred times this year, maybe a few more than that, because I love Nemesis. I always have done. And again, you know, it may have had a couple of issues. The main thing is its rattle. I know quite a lot of people don't feel like it rides the same as original Nemesis, and I would agree. Like, you know, it certainly does have a bit of a rattle towards the end, and I don't think it's anything too concerning, based on some other things we've seen from B&M lately. Other B&M coasters seem to be having this rattle and a bit of a bounce going on to them. I mean, I saw some footage of Wrap Terror, the new coaster at King's Dominion for next year, the wing coaster, and the launch looks really bouncy for that with quite a rattle. So I think it's more of a B&M issue. But luckily on Nemesis, it's not too bad. It's not rough or anything like that. But overall, I'm just so grateful that the money was spent to reopen Nemesis. They could have easily not replaced that coaster. And Alton Towers would have really felt like it had lost its heart, you know, because that is the heart and soul of the park. Nemesis, that capacity eater, that monster, quite literally, and the backstory. Forbidden Valley is by far the most immersive part of the park, one of the most immersive themed areas in the UK. So I think it's really nice that they created that whole backstory, and that is going to get better with the new ride from next year as well, which we're really looking forward to in 2025. Gold Rush at Drayton Manor. Drayton Manor's gone through like a real weird few years, hasn't it? But in a good way. We've seen a lot of rides come out, but then there's so much investment that's gone in. Gold Rush, fantastic new Intamin family coaster, really unique as well. Great ride for the UK. The fact it's got the two different cycles on there, that has made it a real solid, unique coaster, because you know, you're going on there and you're getting two different experiences. It's a really good fun ride. It's got some little bits of airtime and some little forces here and there. It's just a great fun family thrill coaster that was a great fit. We saw the transformation of Shockwave into the Wave for this year. Again, I think that was a real highlight. Shockwave, don't get me wrong, it was a unique ride with it being a stand-up coaster, but blimey, it was uncomfortable in its latter years. So I think replacing it with a new train from Art Engineering was a good call. I think it could have done with another train as well, to be honest, two trains. Or imagine in an ideal world, if they'd have kept one train stand-up, one train sit-down, that would have been even more awesome. But still, they kept the coaster. It's iconic, and yeah, they replaced it with a brand new train and put some new theming in, and yeah, I thought that was a real good job they did of the Wave. I think the track needed repainting, or at least cleaning ideally, because the track looked a bit dirty, but still, that was a real highlight of the year too. So again, Drayton Manor really shining throughout 2024. Minifigure Speedway opened this year down at Legoland Windsor. Again, two new jewellery coasters. They were really good fun up there on the hillside. Legoland's always kind of lacked having some bigger coasters, so I think it's a really nice addition to have Minifigure Speedway. And as much as some of the area hasn't been finished off to the best, I think overall that was a nice addition. We've had a good year for new investments in the UK, which has been really positive. Unfortunately, there has been some negative this year. A big one for me across quite a few of the parks, especially within Merlin and also Blackpool Pleasure Beach. We've seen some poor ride availability and operations this year. Things like, you know, rides just being closed for longer than normal. Obviously, rides break down, rides have issues. That's just the standard procedure. But it feels like this year there's been a lot more breakdowns. I'm not too sure why, but it just seems like there's been a lot more downtime on rides and just general like, oh, sorry, this ride's closed today without any explanation, which has been a bit of a weird one. Obviously, the part that I feel like, you know, has performed the weakest this year, major park, sadly, is Alton Towers. We've seen really poor ride availability. Things like, you know, Hex operated for the best part of a month at the end of the season. We were promised that back at the start of the year. It operated for a month. Skyride's been closed all year. Again, it was last year too, but looking good for reopening next year, which I'm pleased about. It's been seen testing recently, which is really promising. Over to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, we've seen like Ice Blast, and I know that is coming back next year with the retheme. They're spending the money, which I appreciate. But we went the best part of this year without any communication, any signage out the front of the ride. So I think that's been a real shame, but I'm glad that it is coming back now. I just think they should have announced this earlier on and just said we're doing this big refurbishment to keep it nice and transparent. River Caves, that's been shut for many, many months at Blackpool Pleasure Beach too. Which I think is really sad. It's a historical, iconic dark ride, so it's always sad when a ride's closed for quite a long period of time. So, you know, we have seen quite a mix of poor operations and ride availability this year that I really hope gets better in 2025. Fingers crossed. Let's head stateside then now and talk about what has been one of the big highlights for me of this year, and that was riding Top Thrill 2. We are so lucky that we got to experience the reimagined Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point this year. It operated for only 8 days this season before closing. It remained closed for the rest of the year, and fingers crossed Cedar Point are hoping to get it back open from the start of the season in 2025. But of course they've had so many issues with the ride, and it's such a shame. I do feel really sorry for them, because the ride experience of Top Thrill 2 is incredible. It's one of my favourite ever roller coasters in the world. Me and Charlotte both absolutely loved it. We only managed to do it twice when we were there, but we are so lucky because we landed that day, we went straight to the park, we got on it, and then after that it was closed. If we hadn't have gone into the park that day, we wouldn't have got to ride it, so I'm so happy that we did. But yeah, that's been another really weird part of the year this year, hasn't it? Like new rides opening and having issues. We saw that with Hyperia here, but we've definitely saw that with Top Thrill 2, which has been a lot worse of a situation than what we had on Hyperia. That seems nothing compared to this. Some pretty major issues with Top Thrill 2. Of course, we don't know the exact details, but there was all sorts. It looks like it's something with the trains, that there's an issue. Obviously, Zamperla had never built anything to this scale before, and the ride experience was incredible. It really was. Going up that reverse spike over 400 foot, I've never felt anything like it on a coaster. One of the best sensations I've ever had on any ride. So I'm really hoping that it's back open and still offering the same thrilling ride experience in 2025. But obviously, yeah, that reimagining from Top Thrill Dragster into Top Thrill 2, 8 days of operation for a major coaster. That is pretty poor, isn't it? So yeah, let's hope it gets better next year. Obviously, safety is always paramount though with the parks, but blimey, they've had some bad luck there. It's not been the best year for the States in terms of like ride removals. Obviously, the biggest one, Kingda Ka, the tallest roller coaster in the world. Permits have been filed for demolition. It's going to be getting demolished in February next year, I think it is. So yeah, that's going to be really sad seeing footage of that. I'd love to see that though in person. We won't be able to, but yeah, I'm sure someone will be there and capture footage of that. But whoever thought that we'd be seeing Kingda Ka, the king of coasters, getting demolished, like blown up, like that is crazy, isn't it? But there you go. It's not just Kingda Ka though. Green Lantern's gone at the same park, Six Flags Great Adventure. Anaconda at King's Dominion, a classic arrow looping coaster, that's going to be coming out, which is really sad. Nighthawk at Carowinds, I'm not too sad about this one, but I know some people that are. It's Vekoma, like Flying Dutchman coaster. For me, one of my least favourite coasters ever. Like, I found them really uncomfortable. But still, it's sad that they haven't gave people the chance to give things a last ride. We saw that with Blade here in the UK. I know it's only a smaller thing, but still, Skyrider at Legoland. All these rides that have shut this year, and there's been no like official announcements. The saddest one being Kingda Ka. I think, it's terrible that they didn't put a statement out and say, come and get your last rides. From a marketing point of view, it would have been fantastic as well. People would have travelled to go and ride that. I know people, I've been chatting with loads of people recently that have said, if we knew Kingda Ka was shutting, we'd have booked our trip to go this year. Nobody really knew until rumours a few months ago, and then that was just it. And now it's been demolished, which is crazy, isn't it? Whoever thought that would be demolished? Like, it just seems such a waste, doesn't it? And not even to not repurpose the structure. At least with Top Thrill 2, they tried to repurpose the structure, and fingers crossed there'll be a more successful reopening with that next year. But yeah, we've seen a lot of rides close in the States, which is very sad. And some big iconic coasters, things like classic arrow looping coasters are few and far between now. So I'm sad when we see any rides like that close, I really am. We've had extended ride downtime on Formula Rossa this year. That's been quite sad. We got on it though, luckily. We were some of the last riders on that as well. It's like we've had a bit of a curse this year with some of these rides. But we got on Formula Rossa, the fastest coaster in the world. That closed back in January, the week after we left, and it reopened last week in December. So it's been shut for the best part of the year. So it's been a really weird one, hasn't it? Especially with parks in the States and the UK. Mainland Europe and the Asia parks seem to have had the better year of anyone. There's been some really good openings. Of course, Voltron Naviera at Europa Park, still with its few issues, mainly with the bouncing and some major vibrations, but still a lot better now than it was earlier in the year. When we were there a few weeks ago, it was a lot more comfortable. We're actually there now, while you're watching this, actually, for a New Year trip with friends. We're not filming this trip because we only filmed the Christmas event event a few weeks ago, but we're there with some friends over for New Year, so we'll be getting more rides in on Voltron. But yeah, still a big successful ride for the opening of Europa Park. I just wish the actual opening day was a lot better. It was very chaotic, it was very poorly organised, so let's hope that Europa Park can learn from that. That all kind of comes into my weird year. Europa Park, like one of the best parks in the world, operations incredible, but then when it came to the running of that opening day, it was terrible, that opening day, you know, so it's just been a weird year for theme parks. That's why I just wanted to do this kind of summary and talk about it all, really. Along with that, Mahuka, that was a really good ride that opened in Europe this year at Walibi Rhone Alp. We enjoyed that so much. Did the Intamin event there. Along with that too, we saw Danse Macabre open at Efteling, beautiful new dark ride, really enjoyed that, something new from Intamin. And there's been a lot of smaller things that have opened throughout Europe as well. This is one we didn't get to this year because again, this has had issues. Bellewaerde in Belgium, their Rapids ride that opened from Intamin, that's had a few issues this year. And yeah, it's basically spent a lot of the year closed and having problems. So yeah, it's been a weird year this year, 2024. But in general though, we've done a lot, we've seen a lot of things, we've travelled to a lot of places, and we've had a really nice time taking you all along. Like I say, I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that we get and getting to travel to all these different theme parks. It really is amazing. So honestly, we appreciate it so much. But let's just hope things are a bit more consistent next year. We've had some real good highlights, haven't we, this year? Some amazing things have happened, but then there's also just been some real negatives and things. Like whoever thought we'd be, you know, here in December 2024, we're like King Dakar being demolished. If you'd have said that 12 months ago, I'd have been like, what? What are you going on about? And who'd have thought Top Thrill 2 would only operate for 8 days and Rosser would be shut for pretty much the whole year, you know, and all these other ride removals. It's been a really weird season, hasn't it? We had all them promises from Alton Towers at the start of the year, best year ever and all that, and it's one of the worst years in the history of the park. Like, it's been a funny one this year, but let's hope 2025 is going to be better. There's a lot of investments across the parks. We've not got loads of stuff in the UK next year, but hopefully there's going to be some big announcements made in the UK regarding a certain new Universal theme park that we should be able to look forward to. Fingers crossed anyway. But as always, thanks for joining me here on Theme Park Worldwide. Always love being honest, always love bringing you the latest and being realistic as well. Like, obviously, you know, there's a lot of positives that have happened, but there's been some negatives. A mixed bag 2024, that's the way I'm going to see it. But still, we're going out with a bang tomorrow. New year, here we come, and I look forward to seeing what 2025 has to offer. Let me know your kind of season in review down below in the comments. I would love to know as always. Have a very happy new year, everyone, and that leaves me with one final thing to say. Get out there and keep on riding. See you in the next video.